The girl was born with a strange ability. Wherever she touched or walked, poisonous mushrooms would bloom. So everyone in town called her the Mushroom Witch, and they kept their distance from her. Shop owners would slam their doors shut the moment they saw her, and that always made the witch feel sad. Whenever that happened, she would pull her hat down to cover her face. Sharp thorns would then grow from it, as if warning others not to get close. But there were still a few people willing to deal with her. The pharmacy owner was one of the rare ones who welcomed her, because the potions she made worked incredibly well. But whenever they met, the owner never took off his mask, and before she left, he always reminded her to clean up the mushrooms she left behind. Aside from the pharmacy, the witch also loved the bookstore. It wasn't just because of the books, it was also because the owner was a very handsome elf. Even though he used magic to disguise himself as a human, he could never fool a real witch. Whenever she felt happy, roses would bloom across her hat. The elf bookstore owner always welcomed her visits, because every time she showed up, he could sense the toxic air around town becoming cleaner. It turned out her special body could break down toxins in the environment, but because of that, both she and the mushrooms she grew were poisonous. The stronger the poison in the air, the bigger and denser the mushrooms became. Just like last week, when there was an execution in the town square. Afterwards, giant mushrooms as tall as trees sprouted from the ground. When the elf owner heard about it, he looked genuinely worried, because he knew executions were linked to hunting witches. In this country, there were only two kinds of magic users: white witches who served the royal family, and black witches who refused to obey. The mushroom witch was the latter, so she always lived carefully. She never hated the human world, even though she could feel hostility all around her, because her mushrooms could purify and dissolve that hostility. Even if that malice made the mushrooms turn into monsters, she could easily defeat them, and even pop them into her mouth to taste them. The elf owner was grateful she purified his books, but whenever she showed up, he would light incense ahead of time, and once she left, he would immediately deep clean the entire shop. And the witch actually knew all of this. Later she returned to the pharmacy, because around that time it would always get crowded. People came just to buy her potions, and that was the scene she loved the most. She would sit quietly in the corner, watching customers smile after getting what they needed, and all her exhaustion would melt away. But today, she noticed a special customer, a man with only one leg, struggling to walk with a crutch. The witch watched as he left disappointed. When she got home, she created a potion that could regrow limbs, but the pharmacy owner refused to sell it, because anything too miraculous would only be labeled as heresy. So the witch disguised the potion as a mushroom ingredient to slip it onto the shelves, but it was still recognized, and she was forced to leave with it. She wanted to find that uncle again, but no one would tell her where he lived. So in the end, she helplessly released the potion into nature. Just as she was about to leave town, a scene caught her attention: a young couple hugging each other tightly. It was the first time the witch had seen such a thing, and she was stunned. Because of her toxic body, anyone who touched her would be poisoned, so hugs were impossible for her. But deep down, she longed for that kind of warmth, that thing humans called love. She wanted to ask the bookstore owner for books about romance, but she got too shy and buried her face into her hat. So her companion, a yellow cow, spoke for her, and she secretly bought a romance novel to take home. Back at home, her animal companions gathered around her, and together they got lost in the story. Her magic allowed picture books to come to life, as if they were truly living inside the story, and because of that, the witch never felt lonely. The boy was only 9 years old, yet he loved teasing the young maid in his household, and somehow, the maid actually enjoyed it. Every time, she would blush and beam from ear to ear. This put enormous pressure on the etiquette tutor responsible for Kuno. She had hoped to raise him into a charming gentleman. Instead, Kuno seemed to be led astray by the maid Iko. He kept picking up shameless flirtatious remarks from her. After the etiquette lesson ended, Kuno's whole family gathered to discuss his schooling. Ever since he learned how to read, Kuno had already taught himself a great deal of knowledge. He believed there was no real need for him to attend school at all, but his father insisted that attending school was a noble's duty, especially since Kuno was the fiancé of the ninth Princess Milika. If he refused to go, it would put the princess at a disadvantage in future social settings. Hearing this, Kuno immediately decided to attend school. Fortunately, the Noble Academy offered advancement exams. If he passed a few tests after enrolling, he might even graduate together with his older brother. When Milika heard the news, she was delighted. She immediately said she would take care of Kuno at school, but Kuno knew very well, if he stayed under Milika's protection, it would surely attract a swarm of jealous boys. Those words made Milika fall silent. Seeing this, Kuno thought she simply wasn't very popular.
ありますよ。これでも王女ですから。私を好きな男の子なんて右手の指の数だけいますよ。5人はいると。
On the day he went to school, Kuno put on a brand new formal outfit. He looked exactly like a refined young gentleman, but the moment he opened his mouth, the image completely collapsed. His smooth, practiced teasing of the maid even made his older brother question whether this was really his little brother. Before setting off, Kuno wrapped the carriage wheels in a layer of water film. This provided excellent lubrication and shock absorption. As a result, the ride was both fast and incredibly smooth. His brother couldn't help but marvel at how convenient magic was. Little did he know this was only the tip of the iceberg of Kuno's progress over the past 2 years. Kuno had already integrated water magic into his instincts. He relied on it to make life easier in every possible situation. When Kuno arrived at the school gates, Milika happily rushed over to greet him. The two then launched into a round of overly sweet flirting, so cringy that even the older brother couldn't bear to watch. Before entering the school, Kuno sensed chaotic voices inside through the water elements in the air, but he was no longer afraid of crowds. Being at school felt as natural to him as being at home. Even when facing teachers, he still dared to crack jokes. During the entrance exam, he kept complaining about the relationship between his father and the king, and openly said he felt ashamed to be admitted through nepotism. The teacher dared not listen to royal gossip like this. She only hoped Kuno would shut up and focus on the test. What she didn't expect was that despite all his talking, Kuno scored perfect marks in every subject. After the exam, Kuno wanted to have a meal with Milika, but they ran into her sixth royal brother. The sixth prince was unhappy with Milika's rising status after her engagement, so he planned to undermine Kuno to damage her reputation. Kuno's older brother panicked and quickly stepped in between them. He was terrified of damaging the relationship between the royal family and the Marquis household. Seeing this, Kuno quietly condensed water elements and soaked the sixth prince's pants.
あれこの人おもらししてる
The sixth prince was utterly humiliated. He knew there was no way to explain himself, so he could only leave with his followers. This scene shocked the older brother. He never expected his once gloomy younger brother to have become this mischievous, but Kuno firmly denied that he had anything to do with it. The girl cut off her long hair, just so she could sneak into an all-boys school, and hopefully run into her idol. On her very first day, Ashiya crashed straight into a boy because she was late. The moment they touched, the boy suddenly realized this person looked way too much like a girl. Ashiya panicked. Afraid of exposing her identity, she bolted from the scene. When Ashiya finally reached the classroom, out of breath, she discovered the same boy had followed right behind her. That was when she realized they were actually classmates. After she calmed down, Ashiya finally recognized him. He was the high jump star she admired, and this unexpected encounter made her excited about school. So when the first class ended, Ashiya went up to the boy Sano and said the words, "I like you." The boys in the class immediately started cheering and mocking them. They laughed and said the two were gay. Sano instantly freaked out. He hurriedly said he had no interest in guys, then ran out of the classroom. Ashiya was completely confused. What she meant by like was just wanting to be friends, because among girls, saying "I like you" is totally normal. Even after being rejected, Ashiya didn't give up on becoming friends with Sano. Her behavior caught the attention of Nakatsu from their class. It was his first time seeing a transfer student confess on day one. Soon, the day came to an end. After her confession that morning, Ashiya never saw Sano again. Under Nakatsu's guidance, she headed toward the boys' dorm to rest, but on the way, they ran into a small dog. The dog jumped straight at Ashiya and started licking her wildly. This immediately made Nakatsu suspicious, because the dog at school only ever approached girls. Ashiya was internally panicking. Just when she thought she was about to be exposed, Nakatsu came up with his own explanation. Animals messing up genders is pretty normal. In the end, Ashiya narrowly made it to the boys' dorm. What she didn't expect was that her roommate turned out to be Sano. Ashiya took the chance to explain that what she said that morning just meant friendship. She said she already knew Sano was great at high jump, which was why she remembered his name. But after hearing that, Sano calmly replied that he had already quit high jump. Ashiya was instantly shocked. She kept pressing him for the reason, but Sano didn't want to talk about it. Soon, he left the dorm, leaving Ashiya there all alone. Before long, night arrived. Ashiya was invited by Nakatsu to eat at the cafeteria, but on the way, she spotted a familiar figure. So Ashiya told Nakatsu to go ahead, and walked toward that figure instead. Just as she expected, Sano was leaning against a tree, fast asleep. His handsome side profile left Ashiya completely mesmerized. Using taking care of him as an excuse, she quietly sat down beside him, then gently reached out to touch his cheek. But right at that moment, Sano's head suddenly tilted as he slept too deeply. Thankfully, Ashiya reacted fast, and caught his face with her hand. Just as Ashiya didn't know what to do next, the little dog suddenly jumped onto Sano, sending both of them crashing to the ground. Sano woke up immediately. He was confused about why Ashiya was beside him. Ashiya hurriedly explained that she was afraid he'd catch a cold, so she stayed with him. Sano was genuinely surprised. He never expected Ashiya to be such a strange person, but after this incident, his attitude toward her softened a lot. During PE class, Ashiya was feeling a bit down. She couldn't understand why Sano gave up high jump. Nakatsu noticed this from the side, and came over to comfort her. He thought she was just nervous about the upcoming 100-meter sprint, but what shocked Nakatsu was that Ashiya ran the fastest time in the entire school. The result left everyone stunned, because before this, Nakatsu had been the school speed ace, and the star striker of the soccer team. Now, every club that needed speed swarmed around Ashiya, all hoping she would join. Ashiya panicked and ran away. Using her incredible speed, she hid behind the school building to avoid everyone. At that moment, she noticed a familiar figure lying in the grass. It was her idol, Sano. His sleeping face left Ashiya frozen in a daze. Just as she leaned in to kiss him, voices suddenly interrupted, and woke Sano up. members of the basketball team came asking Sano if he had seen a small, delicate-looking boy. Sano knew they were talking about Ashiya, but he said he hadn't seen anyone. When Sano turned back around, Ashiya was already gone. Because she was too shy to face him anymore, the boy had a secret. His childhood friend would climb through his window every morning and slip into his bed. Then she would snuggle up to him in a very affectionate way for a while. Under normal circumstances, a rom-com hero might have taken things a step further, but he wasn't sure whether she truly liked him. If he acted rashly, they might not even be able to stay friends. So whenever this happened, he deliberately forced himself not to see her as a girl. On the surface, Xiaoxi seemed completely clueless, as if she had no idea she was doing anything wrong. But inside, her heart was anything but calm. The truth was, she had liked the hero for a long time. She also knew very well that he loved childhood friend romance comedies, so Xiaoxi began copying scenes from those stories to win him over. But strangely enough, no matter how hard she tried, the hero always acted as if he had no interest in her. This made her start doubting whether she simply lacked charm. That day, Xiaoxi learned a new trick. She pretended to trip and fall, using a classic rom-com setup, determined to make the hero's heart skip a beat. But to her surprise, the hero completely ignored what had just happened. In reality, the hero was also putting on an act. Seeing this, Xiaoxi had no choice but to use her backup plan. She pretended to twist her ankle, wanting to test whether the hero would carry her. The result, however, caught her completely off guard. The hero actually carried a first aid kit with him. He planned to treat her ankle before leaving. The reason he was so well prepared was because Xiaoxi had often gotten injured ever since they were little. After her ankle was taken care of, the hero prepared to leave. Seeing this, Xiaoxi quickly grabbed his hand. She claimed her foot still hurt a little, and that she needed someone to support her. The hero didn't refuse after hearing that, but not long after they started holding hands, they were spotted by another childhood friend, Xiaodeng. Her expression immediately changed. She accused the hero of taking advantage of Xiaoxi, with Xiaodeng interrupting like this. The two no longer dared to hold hands, but Xiaodeng didn't step in out of a sense of justice. She also liked the hero herself, and she didn't want Xiaoxi to get ahead of her. However, Xiaodeng often couldn't control her temper. On the surface, her relationship with the hero seemed terrible. They would even get into a huge argument just for buying the same drink. This left the hero completely confused. Back when they were kids, Xiaodeng used to cling to him all the time, yet now, they couldn't even remain friends. What he didn't know was that the truth was the exact opposite. The reason they attended the same school was because Xiaodeng had secretly been following in his footsteps all along. She carefully dressed up just to catch the hero's attention. Even buying the same drink was done on purpose. At that moment, they both opened their drinks, and the hero suddenly realized the bottle in his hand wasn't his. They had accidentally swapped them during their argument, but by the time he tried to warn her, it was already too late. Xiaodeng had already taken a sip, which meant they had indirectly kissed. Although this sent Xiaodeng's imagination racing, she pretended not to care at all. It was just an indirect kiss, after all. She even mocked the hero for making such a big deal out of it. Neither of them was willing to back down. Both wanted to prove they were better than the other, until Xiaodeng suddenly said something.
今私と
Huh?
Soon, the two found themselves by the stairwell. Neither of them had any kissing experience, but neither wanted to admit defeat. In the end, Xiaodeng leaned in first. Just as she was about to kiss him, Xiaoxi saw the scene. The hero thought a classic rom-com moment was about to unfold, but Xiaoxi merely helped remove a loose thread from his face. Although she looked calm on the outside, alarms were blaring in her heart. Xiaodeng's actions made her feel a strong sense of danger. She decided she needed to be much more aggressive. The next day, using the excuse of copying homework, Xiaoxi directly sat down on the hero's lap. She wanted to test his reaction. The entire class was left staring in shock. Xiaodeng saw the scene from a distance. She told Xiaoxi to go back to her own seat to write, but Xiaoxi refused to move. She claimed this was just what close childhood friends did. Those words instantly fueled Xiaodeng's jealousy. She immediately copied her and sat down as well. Thankfully, the hero didn't let them keep messing around. He pushed both of them away and said he needed to use the restroom. In the eyes of his classmates, he looked incredibly cool, completely unmoved by beauty. But no one knew. He was actually holding back with everything he had. On his very first day at school, the boy became the center of attention. That was because he was a hybrid of a human and a chimpanzee. From the outside, he looked like nothing more than a strange experimental product. But in reality, he possessed an extraordinary body and astonishing intelligence. Charlie was born from a secret research project. Everything changed when a group of terrorists attacked the laboratory. They were from the Animal Liberation Alliance. They claimed they were putting an end to cruel animal experiments. All the animals in the lab were released. One pregnant chimpanzee on the verge of miscarriage was sent by the attackers to the nearest animal hospital. Not long after, Charlie was born. He was adopted by a scientist couple who specialized in chimpanzee research. 15 years passed in the blink of an eye. His adoptive parents decided it was time to send him to school. They had already informed the school of his situation in advance. But on the very first day, countless strange stares were fixed on Charlie. No matter where he went, people whispered behind his back. And in an age where information spreads instantly online, his past was easy to dig up. Many students treated him as a curiosity. Some even stood outside the classroom just to stare at him during lessons. Some girls thought he looked cute, but many boys felt uneasy. After all, a normal chimpanzee's grip strength can exceed 1,100 pounds. Yet a boy named Oz didn't seem to care at all. Just then, A wave of noise in the distance caught everyone's attention. A cat was stuck high up in a tree. The crowd had no idea what to do. At that moment, a figure in a hat swiftly climbed up the tree. It was Lucy, the school's model student. She quickly reached the cat on the branch, but just as she hugged it and prepared to climb down, the branch beneath her feet suddenly cracked. Charlie, who was in class, heard the sound. He immediately noticed what was happening outside the window. Charlie wrapped an arm around Lucy's waist and calmly climbed down the tree. Without saying a word, he turned and walked away. Watching from the side, Oz couldn't help but comment that it really was the strength of a chimpanzee. At lunchtime, Lucy gathered her courage and sat across from Charlie. She was full of curiosity about him. She wanted to know how the world looked through his eyes, but Charlie turned the question back on her. He wanted to know what it felt like to be human. Lucy felt like she had finally found someone who understood her. She excitedly wanted to become friends with Charlie, but whenever someone came close to take photos, Lucy would fall silent and step back. Two girls noticed that Charlie's tray only had vegetables. They curiously asked if he couldn't eat meat. Charlie said he could. He just never had, because his adoptive parents were strict vegans. That answer immediately annoyed Oz. His family ran a meat restaurant, and they were often harassed by vegan activists. Oz deliberately asked a provocative question. If veganism believes all animal lives are equal, then what if a virus-carrying rat tried to bite you, and the only way to stop it was to shoot it? Would Charlie sacrifice himself for the sake of equality? Charlie thought for a long time before answering no. Oz then began mocking vegans, but at that moment, Charlie spoke up again. He said that if Oz were that rat, he would pull the trigger without hesitation. Those words sent a chill down Oz's spine. Early the next morning, a meat restaurant in the city center was hit by a terrorist attack. The ruins were marked with the symbol of the Animal Liberation Alliance. The attackers were celebrating elsewhere, yet they felt guilty after accidentally injuring a child. The organizers responded by intensifying their brainwashing. They claimed animals and humans were equal, and that sacrifices were unavoidable in the fight for liberation. The members' morale quickly recovered. The alliance leader then issued a new order. They were to bring back the chimpanzee-human hybrid from 15 years ago, because his immense strength would be crucial for their future operations. The man was accidentally reincarnated as a low-ranking demon soldier. His mission was to stop the Heroes Party from invading the Demon King's castle. What Yangshu never expected was how weak the heroes in this world actually were. Even the hero's strongest attack could be crushed with a casual lift of his hand. Just as Yangshu was about to wipe out the entire team, he fell in love at first sight with the party's priest, Cecilia. So he simply dumped the 4 unconscious members near a nearby human village. When the Demon King heard about it, he didn't care at all. After all, heroes who couldn't even beat a gatekeeper weren't worth worrying about. A month quickly passed. During that time, the heroes challenged Yangshu many times, but every single attempt ended in failure. No attack, regardless of attribute, could harm him in the slightest. This filled the heroes' party with despair. If they didn't defeat the Demon King soon, the world would fall completely under his rule. Just when they had no options left, Yangshu proposed a condition. If the heroes left Cecilia behind, he would allow the other 3 to go challenge the Demon King. The hero instinctively wanted to refuse, but the party's mage urged him to accept. Yangshu could take their lives at any moment, so there was no need for him to negotiate in the first place. And saving the world was clearly more important than one person's life. The hero still hesitated, but Cecilia stepped forward and said she was willing to stay. Though unwilling, the hero could only swear that he would return to save her after defeating the Demon King. After the 3 left, Cecilia refused to wait helplessly. She immediately unleashed her strongest attack spell, but Yangshu casually reflected it into the wall. During the brief opening, Yangshu hurriedly explained that he didn't want to fight. There was just something he wanted to say to her.
君に一目惚れしました。俺と付き合ってください。
Cecilia froze when she heard it, but after collecting herself, she firmly and seriously rejected Yangshu. That rejection instantly made him lose all hope in life. Ever since his reincarnation, the rules of the world had confined him to a tiny room. He could only go outside when attacking human villages, but he never wanted to do that. Although Yangshu had the power to defeat the Demon King, doing so would force him to inherit the Demon King's burden, so he chose to give up and spend his days idling in the castle. It wasn't until Cecilia appeared that he finally saw hope. After hearing his story, Cecilia felt deep sympathy for him. She said that if his heart was still human, she was willing to take him out to see the outside world. While the two were chatting, the heroes' party successfully defeated the Demon King. Humanity immediately held its grandest celebration. Yangshu disguised himself as a human and became an adventurer. Cecilia wanted him to contribute his strength to humanity. Yangshu planned to build some achievements first, and then properly confess his feelings to her. Adventurer ranks range from F to S. Normally, it takes a month just to go from F to E, but Yangshu reached D in only 1 week. This caused a huge uproar in the Adventurers Guild. After hearing the news, Cecilia went to find Yangshu and invited him to her home. Yangshu was filled with anticipation. participation, but Cecilia seriously advised him to quit the guild. Since the Demon King's defeat, every nation had begun making moves. They were all sending people to form marriage alliances with the hero. She believed a war would inevitably break out soon. With Yangshu's strength, reaching S rank was only a matter of time. But being that high profile would attract attention from every country, if his demon identity were exposed, it would be extremely dangerous. If Yangshu left the Adventurers Guild, she offered to hire him in a personal capacity. She admitted she didn't have enough money to hire an S-rank adventurer, but in return, she was willing to do anything she could for him. Yangshu refused without hesitation. He said he wouldn't be lured away by any country. No matter how many beautiful women tried to marry him, it wouldn't matter, because the only one in his heart was Cecilia. Those words made Cecilia realize she had been worrying too much. In the end, she agreed to support him continuing as an adventurer. At that moment, Cecilia's mother suddenly arrived. She told Yangshu that many people had recently come to propose to Cecilia. Even the hero was among them. Yangshu was furious. He felt the hero was interfering with his romance. Cecilia quickly explained that she had rejected all those proposals. Before Yangshu could relax, her mother asked if he wanted to marry her daughter. Yangshu desperately wanted to say yes on the spot, but he noticed the complicated look on Cecilia's face. So he admitted that he had already been rejected once, and that marriage must respect Cecilia's wishes above all else. Her mother was very satisfied with his answer. She told Yangshu to get along well with Cecilia from now on. The man was once the core founder of a hero party, yet after they broke into the world's top 10, he was expelled by the very team he had built with his own hands. Dula was originally a swordsman at heart, but for the sake of team balance, he switched classes to become an enchanter. He then developed a variety of original support spells for his teammates. These spells could temporarily boost the entire party's stats, although the effects only lasted 3 minutes. As long as they were reactivated before expiring, the buffs could be maintained indefinitely. During a joint suppression mission, they encountered an S-rank enchanter from another team. That person's support magic was completely different from Dula's. The power gap was overwhelming. This led his teammates to conclude that Dula simply wasn't good enough. They believed his presence would hold the party back, so they unanimously decided to kick him out. They had already found a replacement long in advance. Before leaving, the female mage in the party mocked him, saying that although Dula knew both swordsmanship and magic, he was only third-rate at both, and completely unworthy of staying in a hero party. Faced with the true colors of his former comrades, Dula swore to make them regret it. He decided to combine the traits of a swordsman and an enchanter, and forge a new path as an all-round warrior. One day, while Dula was recording a teleport crystal in the upper layers of a dungeon, a small party came running toward him in panic. Dula initially planned to ignore them and walk away, but he accidentally overheard their conversation. It turned out that to escape from a group of demi-humans, they had abandoned a girl from their temporary party as bait. Perhaps because of his own experience of being abandoned, Dula rushed to save her without hesitation. The moment the barrier was shattered by the demi-humans, the girl felt as if she had fallen into an icy abyss. Scenes of death flashed through her mind. At that critical instant, a fierce gust of wind erupted in front of her and scattered the monsters. Before she could even react, Dula was already facing the demi-human horde alone. What shocked her even more was that this man who looked like a swordsman was also capable of using enchanter magic. His body moved like a blur, weaving freely through the enemy ranks. The monsters that had nearly killed her fell one after another under Dula's exquisite swordplay. When the last demi-human was defeated, the girl finally broke down and cried in relief. To thank him for saving her life, she offered to treat Dula to dinner. Dula didn't refuse. During their conversation, the girl said her name was Sophia. Dula noticed the emblem on her cloak. It was the symbol of the large mercenary group Night Sky Silver Rabbit, one of the top guilds in the kingdom. What Dula didn't expect was that the leader of Night Sky Silver Rabbit was Sophia's older sister, Selma. She was the world's finest enchanter, someone who had brought renewed respect to the entire profession. She established the forward-thinking concept of party composition by roles: an attacking frontline, a defensive tank, and a supporting enchanter. This three-person system completely reshaped dungeon exploration. Dula, once a hero party member, was no exception. He had also switched from swordsman to enchanter for his teammates, but after witnessing Selma's overwhelming strength, his own sacrifices felt utterly meaningless. In the end, he was cast out by his party. When Selma learned that her sister had secretly entered a dungeon, and that it was Dula who saved her, she felt deeply grateful for his help. When Sophia heard that Dula had once been a hero party member, she was shocked, and after learning that he had been expelled, Selma was even more incredulous. She couldn't understand how a party could let go of someone so talented. In fact, ever since the last joint operation, Selma had already admired Dula's abilities. After learning that he was currently free, she hoped he would accept a request from her. The day after tomorrow, Night Sky Silver Rabbit would be training new recruits. Several veterans of A rank or higher would be leading the group. The goal was to reach the 51st floor of the dungeon within 3 days. She was willing to pay Dula to join them. At first, Dula wanted to refuse, but he couldn't withstand Sophia's earnest gaze, so he proposed one condition: that he must join the team as a swordsman. The man is the heir to a powerful conglomerate family, yet he has a very strange habit. He demands that every girl who meets him must say "I love you." With his overwhelming wealth, plenty of girls are willing to try. But strangely, Arisu isn't interested in any of them. The reason traces back to his childhood. Back then, he fell in love with a radio host from Apollo Radio. The two of them talked about everything without restraint. Then one day, Apollo Radio suddenly announced its shutdown. All account information was completely erased. Arisu couldn't accept it, so in order to find her, he replayed every past interaction they had. Following the clues, he transferred to the school. He began searching for the voice that had haunted his heart. Arisu listened carefully carefully in every classroom he passed. He recorded and eliminated candidates one by one. He firmly believed he would find the radio girl eventually. That day at noon, he heard a voice from the school broadcasting room that felt extremely familiar. He thought he had finally found her, but when he arrived, he discovered that 4 girls all shared very similar vocal traits. Arisu was completely stunned. He directly asked who had worked for Apollo Radio, but no one responded. That was when Arisu realized he had messed up. Apollo must have deleted everything to hide her identity. By asking outright, he had alerted them. Still, Arisu was certain of one thing: the radio girl had to be one of those 4, because the broadcasting club didn't allow outsiders to enter. So Arisu applied to join the club to observe them closely. To prove his sincerity, he paid to replace all the outdated equipment. Club president Rika agreed to his request. In return, the girls gave him a special voice service.
愛してるよ山吹くん
This made Arisu extremely embarrassed. He quickly made an excuse about lunch and fled. When he returned to the broadcasting club later, only Yuzuki was there. Arisu decided to listen carefully to her voice. Aside from struggling with a few tongue twisters, her everyday speaking tone sounded remarkably similar to the radio host. Later, in the hallway, he ran into Nene. He noticed that her favorite manga was exactly the same one Apollo had once mentioned. Even the way she mimicked character voices was shockingly identical. Only then did Arisu realize something. Identifying her by voice alone was no longer possible. He had listened through a phone back then. The sound had been processed by electronic signals. Apollo's real voice might actually be closer to one of the other tones he was hearing now, so he decided to observe their behavior up close instead. He approached Karino, one of the 4. Her goal was to become a virtual streamer, but Arisu noticed that once she started a stream, she greeted her viewers and immediately ended it. This left him completely speechless. After a full day of observation, he began to notice everyone's shortcomings. President Rika wanted to become a singer, yet she was often nowhere to be found. Yuzuki wanted to be a streamer, but couldn't even handle basic tongue twisters. Nene dreamed of becoming a voice actress, yet didn't even recognize some basic characters. Looking at such a disorganized broadcasting club, Arisu began to wonder if they had forgotten their original promise, because once upon a time, he and Apollo had made a vow. Apollo wanted to become a professional voice worker, and Arisu promised that no matter what she became, he would grow into someone who could perfectly support her. To change the current situation, Arisu made a bold decision. Since he couldn't tell who Apollo really was, he would help all 4 of them achieve their dreams. Through the school broadcast system, he made a declaration. He vowed to guide all of them onto a professional path. The man was once a brutal demon king who invaded other worlds, but he stopped the war because his daughter was far too gentle. Daoru not only heals human wounds, she also helps slaves carry heavy loads. She would even rescue a lizard that fell into the water. This kind of kindness deeply worried the demon king. Seeing his concern, the subordinate Jahi decided to train Daoru into a cruel demon. To reach the human world, they first had to cross a dangerous forest. The forest was filled with wild demons who refused to obey the demon king. But the moment the demon king heard the word danger, he raised his hand and carved out a road. This made Jahi sigh that the demon king was spoiling Daoru way too much. On the way to the human world, Jahi began teaching Daoru how to be a proper demon. That meant stealing and killing. But before she could finish speaking, she turned around and saw Daoru feeding her lunch to a rabbit. Jahi was completely speechless. Their earlier commotion soon attracted a monster. Just as it was about to attack, Jahi sent it flying with a single strike. When she turned back to look at Daoru, she realized another monster had been softened by Daoru's kindness.
あれおじさんは
At that moment, Jahi finally understood something. Daoru wasn't spoiled. Her gentle aura naturally influenced everything around her, and that power was extremely dangerous. Soon, the 2 arrived at a human village. Jahi ordered Daoru to steal the village's food. She even taught her the exact lines to use as a threat. But to Jahi's surprise, Daoru happily started chatting with an old grandma instead. Luckily, Daoru suddenly remembered the mission. She pulled out the prepared lines and tried to threaten her, but her soft voice and cute face made her impossible to fear. The grandma thought she was just playing demon pretend. Even so, Daoru still completed the task, because the grandma gave her a hot sweet potato for free. Daoru then brought the sweet potato back to Jahi, but Jahi criticized her for getting close instead of stealing. She said plundering was far more efficient, but to Daoru, helping each other could also get results. She wanted to become a demon who could help everyone. After that, Daoru visited the village every day. She quickly became familiar with all the villagers. Today, she learned how to make a cloth doll of Jahi with the grandma. This made Jahi very happy, but the demon king soon found out that his daughter was helping humans every day. He questioned Jahi about what was going on. Jahi told him not to worry. She claimed it was all a trap aimed at humans. They were deliberately helping them to gain trust. It was all part of teaching Daoru the demon art of deception. Only then did the demon king feel relieved. He then took out a handful of salt and told Jahi to taste it. The demon king ordered her not to move. Jahi instantly lost control of her body, because it was puppet salt. Once a living being eats it, they must obey any command for a short time. The demon king wanted Daoru to give Jahi a cruel order. He hoped this would awaken her desire to dominate. But all Daoru wanted was for Jahi to gently pat her head. The true goal of this plan was something else. They wanted Daoru to use the trust she had built, and make the grandma eat the puppet salt. Disguised as a human, Jahi planned to observe from the shadows. But after eating the puppet salt, her body moved on its own when humans asked for help. At the same time, the grandma's house needed to be rebuilt. She temporarily moved in with a friend. She decided to give all the dolls she had made to Daudu. Each doll carried her memories of her deceased family. She believed the dolls would be happier staying with Daudu, but Daudu shook her head. She sprinkled puppet salt on the dolls instead. To everyone's shock, the dolls began to move. When Jahi rushed back, she was stunned. She never expected the puppet salt to work on non-living objects. Just as Daudu thought, the dolls wanted to stay with the person who cherished them most, and that deeply moved the grandma. The man unexpectedly discovered that the girl he saved out of justice was actually a succubus in disguise. By day she looked like a cute clueless little girl, but at night she turned into a mature seductive big sister, with eyes that looked like they could swallow him whole. But not long ago, Ashi had no idea about any of this. To make a living, he ventured into the dungeon, where he found a girl being attacked by a slime. Ashi rescued the girl immediately, and asked why she was wandering alone in such a dangerous place. The girl introduced herself as Lil, and said she came to the dungeon only after being abandoned by her parents. Her reason for being here was simply to fill her empty stomach. Ashi could tell she wasn't from the local village, which gave him a headache, because the village orphanage didn't accept outsiders. So Ashi decided to take her along and finish his quest for the day. After reaching a certain depth in the dungeon, they encountered their target monster. The monster's size made Lil scream in terror, but for Ashi, handling such a creature was effortless. His fighting style was extremely violent, leaving Lil trembling in fear. Ashi didn't kill the monster on the spot. Instead, he dragged it out of the dungeon to process, in order to keep the meat fresh. The process scared Lil so badly she passed out. Later, they delivered the meat to the guild. When staff member Ori saw Lil in the cart, she immediately warned Ashi that human trafficking was prohibited. Ashi hurried to explain the situation from start to finish. After hearing him out, Ori said the guild still couldn't take Lil in, so Ashi asked Ori to watch Lil for a moment, while he went to the church orphanage to ask for help. The bishop explained that their orphanage barely survived, relying each month on donated offerings just to keep running. Ashi tentatively asked if he could donate meat every month, in exchange for taking Lil in, but the bishop politely refused, because the church simply didn't have the capacity. Ashi understood completely. If everyone could easily help each other, there wouldn't be so much suffering in the world. He himself was an orphan, and knew how hard survival already was, let alone having extra strength to care for someone else. At that moment, Ori rushed over, saying she had just received an urgent request. A magical beast had appeared in the mountain behind the village, but when she looked back, Lil was nowhere to be found. Ashi guessed Lil might have gone after the beast, so he hurried to the mountain. At the same time, Lil was facing off against the beast. Just as it lunged toward her, Ashi arrived and stopped the attack with one hand. Afterward, he scolded Lil. She couldn't even beat the weakest monsters, yet she came here to die. But Lil had her own reason. She was starving to the point of desperation. She broke down crying, maybe because he saw his past self in her, or maybe out of pity. Ashi decided to take in this helpless girl, and so the two became companions who shared the same bed. That night, a slender leg rested on his chest. The next morning, he woke up to find Lil had turned into a sexy, mature young woman. But the next second, she changed back to normal. Ashi guessed she might be from an ancient race, so he rushed to the guild to report it to Ori. He made sure to emphasize that Lil's traits included being very well endowed, but Ori didn't react at all, which left him disappointed. To improve Lil's combat ability, Ashi accepted a quest to collect slime materials, and insisted she handle them on her own. Lil charged in with full determination, but got swallowed whole by the slime. Ashi had to lecture her about being reckless, but before he finished, Lil rushed in again. The entire morning, she still couldn't defeat a single slime. The only thing worth praising was her determination. At lunchtime, they left the dungeon to eat, but Ashi noticed something. Lil refused to take any food. She believed that because she hadn't contributed, she didn't deserve to eat. Ashi recognized that fear immediately. In the past, Lil felt she had value, so she dared to eat, but now that she realized she was useless, she feared that eating would get her abandoned. Ashi found this extremely difficult to deal with. He had no experience with these situations, so he came up with a dumb solution. He refused to eat too. His reason was simple. He would never leave a companion eating alone, unless they went back and defeated the slime together. Lil was deeply moved. When they returned to face the slime, Ashi told her the weak point was the eyes. Slimes would reveal their eyes when reacting to sound. Then Lil just had to quietly approach, and finish it off in one blow. After successfully defeating the slime, they finally ate lunch together. Lil regained her natural smile, and even held Ashi's hand. That night, Ori researched ancient races, and found records about Lil. The book described a race that transformed into a fertile form at night, and their true identity was succubus. The boy was shocked to find that the new transfer student had an inexplicable charm, but he clearly remembered he was attending an all-boys school, so there shouldn't be any girls at all. Yet he couldn't stop himself from falling for the transfer student. This made Nikatsu seriously doubt his own sexuality, but what he didn't know was that the transfer student student Ashiya was actually a girl disguised as a boy. She had just returned from America not long ago, and during that time, the TV was playing a news feature about the high jumper Sano. With just one look, she became his fangirl, and even chased him all the way into the school. But in less than a day, her secret was discovered by the school doctor. Just when she didn't know what to do, Sano appeared with the belongings she had dropped, and reminded her to head back to the dorm. What surprised Ashiya was that the school doctor didn't expose her, but this also filled her with anxiety. She thought only the school doctor knew her secret, not realizing that when Sano carried her to the infirmary earlier, he had already learned the truth, and simply chose not to say anything. Soon, the two returned to their dorm room. Lying in bed, Sano racked his brain wondering why Ashiya would sneak into a boys' school, and began to worry about her situation. The next day at school, Ashiya found a newspaper posted on the bulletin board, with photos of her and Sano together from the night before. The paper described Ashiya as dangerous. Sano quickly tore it down, then confronted the culprit, warning him to never do it again. After Sano left, the culprit began cursing him. This made Ashiya furious. She punched the guy to the ground, then walked out of the classroom. For the rest of the day, Ashiya noticed Sano was avoiding her. When Nakatsu heard about it, he guessed it was probably because of the morning photos, since sharing a dorm room could easily spark rumors. At that moment, Ashiya spotted Sano standing under a tree with a girl. She hurriedly dragged Nakatsu back to the dorm, then returned with a small dog and secretly approached Sano. She wanted to hear who he was talking to, and if she got caught, walking the dog would be her excuse. Ashiya soon learned the girl's name was Li Xiang. Li Xiang begged Sano to return to high jumping. She believed it was her fault Sano got injured and retired, but Sano firmly stated quitting was his own decision. Right then, a sudden bark interrupted the conversation. Ashiya was caught and instantly panicked. She grabbed the dog and ran. Later on a bench at the park, she wondered if the two were dating. Just when Ashiya decided she needed to learn more about Sano, he had already walked up to her. Ashiya shamelessly asked who that girl was, and added that she was really cute to cover up her curiosity. Sano simply said she was a classmate from middle school, then changed the topic to the small dog. Ashiya then learned Sano had adopted the dog, which surprised her, because she never expected Sano to be so caring. Ashiya continued questioning Sano about why he was avoiding her. Sano stayed silent. Suddenly, headlights flashed from behind, and Sano quickly pulled her back onto the sidewalk. The wall slam pose left Ashiya stunned. After a brief awkward pause, the two pretended nothing happened and stepped apart. But this incident only made Ashiya more obsessed with Sano. The next day, Ashiya mustered the courage to confess the truth to the school doctor. She said that because she admired Sano, she started practicing track and field, and even dreamed of jumping high with him someday. After hearing this, the doctor bluntly said that since Sano had quit high jumping, there was no reason for her to stay, and she could leave the school. But Ashiya refused firmly. She said that after meeting Sano in person, she wanted to understand the real him even more, so no matter how difficult the doctor made her life, she would not give up. Faced with Ashiya's determination, the doctor finally compromised, but he also had one condition. She was not allowed to use her charm to get what she wanted. This made Ashiya incredibly happy. The girl dreamed every night about being intimate with her idol, but one day, that dream actually came true. Just because she accidentally became his personal housekeeper, not only could she see Tawan every day, she basically became part of his daily life. Since a fan meet and greet was coming up, Tawan wanted Kana to rehearse the process with him in advance, so he wouldn't mess up during the event. That request made Kana feel embarrassed, so she refused on the spot. But from Tawan's perspective, her refusal looked like she was disgusted with him. That misunderstanding instantly triggered Kana's hardcore fangirl mode. She said that for Tawan, she was willing to devote her entire life. But with just the slightest physical contact, Tawan's charm hit her like a truck, and she almost fainted on the spot. Seeing her reaction, Tawan felt incredibly guilty. He assumed he had made her uncomfortable, not knowing Kana was actually overflowing with joy, because helping her idol was the greatest happiness a fan could ask for. So the two started practicing different types of interactions. After a series of sweet moments together, Tawan's nerves finally eased a little, while Kana promised she would definitely be there tomorrow to cheer him on. Soon, the day of the meet and greet arrived. Kana was stunned by the massive crowd at the venue. She watched Tawan warmly interact with every fan, and his charm was overwhelming. But suddenly, two fans in front of Kana bumped into each other and started arguing. To avoid affecting Tawan's performance, Kana stepped in to stop them, but because they were causing a commotion, security escorted all three of them out. On her way home, Kana felt crushed. Inside the bus, other fans were excitedly talking about their close interactions with Tawan, while she left with only regret. But Kana quickly pulled herself together. To keep supporting her idol in the future, she decided to work harder and save money. So the moment she got off the bus, she rushed to her housekeeping job. But there, she unexpectedly ran into Tawan. He asked her why she didn't show up at the fan meet. To prevent Tawan from blaming himself, Kana lied and said she had lost her ticket, so she could only watch from afar. Tawan didn't scold her. He only hoped Kana would keep their promise next time. In truth, no matter what Kana asked of him, he would try his best to make it happen. Those words shook Kana's heart. She finally realized Tawan had always wanted her praise, so he practiced relentlessly, just to show his progress to her at the meet and greet. Shortly after, Tawan's TV program decided to do a surprise check on his casual outfits, but for socially anxious Tawan, his only casual clothing was the tracksuit he was already wearing. Kana immediately decided to give him a makeover. To avoid being recognized, Tawan wore a simple head cover. Based on what she knew about him, Kana picked out clothes that fit his vibe. But with just one glance at the transformed Tawan, Kana instantly lost her composure from how handsome he looked. While changing outfits, Tawan often struggled with accessories that wouldn't fit. Each time, Kana quietly helped him put them on. After finishing their shopping, they planned to enjoy some desserts and rest, but Kana's best friend suddenly spotted them. Even though Kana tried desperately to explain that Tawan was just a middle school classmate, her friend didn't believe a word of it, and even suspected they were dating. They demanded that Tawan remove his head cover. In that moment of crisis, Tawan grabbed Kana's hand and ran. The wild escape made Kana feel like she was eloping. A few days later on the show, Tawan's casual outfit received rave reviews, with fans praising his strong boyfriend energy. After the show, they went back to their usual routine, but then Tawan's manager suddenly showed up. He pointed out that before the meet and greet, they secretly practiced holding hands, and they even went on a private outing before the show. Kana instantly felt like her life was over. Seeing her panic, Tawan rushed to defend her, but the next second,
今後ともタモンの家事全般をよろしくお願いします
both of them froze in place. It turned out the manager rarely had time to take care of Tawan due to work, but ever since Kana appeared, Tawan not only worked harder, he also slowly started to open up, so the manager was actually grateful. The man was reincarnated and awakened production magic. He turned managing his territory into a tower defense game. A barren village fell into Von's hands, and he quickly developed it into the strongest fortress. As the youngest son of a marquis family, Von showed exceptional intelligence at the age of 2, and on top of that, he was incredibly cute, so the maids loved to gather around him and serve him. But Von understood that in any world, if he wanted to survive, he had to study hard. What he didn't expect was that once the butler learned he loved studying, he personally came to test him. Soon, the butler realized Von was incredibly gifted, so he decided to supervise Von's studies himself. This instantly reminded Von of the trauma of calculus in his previous life. During his breaks from studying, he practiced swordsmanship with his personal maid Teal, but since Von's body hadn't developed yet, calling it sword training was really just him playing around with Teal. The older maids thought it was disrespectful, but Von didn't care at all. He simply gave Teal a symbolic punishment, which left the others speechless, because in his previous life, he had learned martial arts. By the time he was 5, there wasn't a single child in the Marquis household who could match him, and due to his extraordinary talent in swordsmanship, the vice captain of the Knights personally requested to train Von harshly every day. To avoid wasting Von's potential, he even made him hold horse stances during breaks. But that lifestyle didn't last long, because once the genius rumors spread, Von slowly noticed that his older brothers looked at him with growing hostility. They clearly regarded him as a rival for inheritance, but Von had no intention of joining the family struggle. He decided to act like a spoiled, lazy good-for-nothing until adulthood. To make that persona believable, he went to the largest merchant guild in the city, the Merry Trading Company, but as soon as he walked in, he saw an old man attempting to sell his own son as a slave for money. Von felt pity. He asked the receptionist how much the boy was worth. After an evaluation, the receptionist offered a fair price of 3 silver coins. The old man cursed the boy for being worthless. Seeing this scene, Von immediately offered 5 silver coins. Doing so not only saved the boy's life, but also reinforced his spoiled young master persona. The old man took the money and left. Then the receptionist helped Von form a slave contract with the boy. A flash of light appeared, and a slave crest surfaced on the boy's hand. It meant that unless Von released him, the boy would be bound to him for life. As someone who reincarnated, Von still felt uncomfortable owning slaves, but the boy was deeply grateful to Von, believing that Von had saved his life. So the slave crest, which slaves usually tried to hide, became in his eyes a symbol of his bond with Von. He obeyed only Von, even the vice captain, whom Von avoided. The boy dared to talk back to without hesitation. His courage even earned the vice captain's respect. Soon, Von reached the age for official magic attribute appraisal, but to everyone's shock, he didn't awaken the Marquis family's fire attribute, nor any of the 4 major elemental attributes. He awakened only production magic, a magic widely regarded as trash. In this world, nobles revered the 4 elements, so Von instantly became the disgrace of the Marquis household. The Marquis decided to erase him completely, but at that moment, Von's eldest brother stepped forward and shielded him. He persuaded the Marquis to make use of this trash by sending Von to a village bordering an enemy nation. If Von somehow developed it, it would be a pleasant surprise. If he failed and died from pressure, it would serve as a convenient political excuse. The Marquis agreed. He assigned the village to Von and walked away without looking back. People who heard about this pitted him deeply, but Von was actually excited, because compared to being surrounded by scheming every day in the Marquis estate, running his own territory sounded far more peaceful and enjoyable. Even though Von was essentially exiled, the vice captain and the butler had long regarded him as their true successor, so both resigned from the Marquis household, choosing to follow Von and help him establish an entirely new legacy. The girl possessed a rare reversal skill. All curses and negative effects had no impact on her. Instead, they would turn into powerful strength. This meant the more damage Flam took, the stronger she became. At first, Flam had no idea how to use her skill properly. After being chosen by the creation god to join the heroes party, she was content to quietly handle logistics. But during the status appraisal, all of her stats were revealed to be 0. The party sage began to treat her as dead weight, and grew jealous of how close she was with the hero, so he secretly sold her to a slave trader, without telling any of their companions. The sage even branded a slave mark on her face himself. Flam's heart sank into despair. She believed this was a decision made by the entire hero party. She had no idea the sage lied to the others, telling them Flam willingly returned home. home. When Flam woke up again, there were many other slaves around her, along with an enraged slave trader. Only then did she learn the trader hoped to make big money, but discovered she had no combat value and couldn't be sold at all. There were still many slaves locked inside the dungeon. The slave trader drove everyone into a battle arena, then released a low-level monster called a ghoul to watch them fight for his amusement. He declared that anyone who survived would earn the right to be sold again, but bare-handed slaves stood no chance against a ghoul, so he specifically prepared a single weapon for them. While Flam was still dazed, a man rushed toward the greatsword, but as the blade lit up with a sudden glow, his hand instantly melted, and in moments turned into a pool of blood. It turned out the sword carried a deadly curse. Anyone who touched it would have their body dissolved. Watching others die right in front of her, Flam fell into utter despair, but she felt that being shredded and eaten by a ghoul was far worse than choosing her own ending, so she grabbed the cursed sword without hesitation. To Flam's surprise, the curse on the sword didn't harm her at all. Instead, it granted her overwhelming power. Even the wounds from the ghoul's bite healed instantly. As the ghoul lunged at her again, an image flashed through Flam's mind. It was a sword technique she once saw the hero use. She copied it without hesitation and sliced the ghoul in one strike. Flam then drove the blade through the traitor's heart. After everything was done, she silently whispered return in her mind. The sword turned into white light and imprinted itself onto the back of her hand. Just as Flam was about to leave, she unexpectedly found another survivor in the dungeon. The girl seemed mentally unstable and insisted on recognizing Flam as her master before leaving. With no other choice, Flam agreed to this absurd condition, but once they left the dungeon, they discovered that people outside hated slaves. Flam had no desire to start any conflict. To survive, she decided they needed money first, so they headed to the guild to register as adventurers. The receptionist advised them to just sell their bodies instead, claiming the adventurer mortality rate was far too high. Flam wasn't afraid at all, but right then, a male adventurer walked up. He claimed that to get a license, one had to prove their strength first. He then picked a high difficulty request, but stamped it with the lowest F-rank seal. Everyone nearby was stunned by what they saw, but because of his close relationship with the guild, no one dared to warn Flam. Flam thought she had met a helpful expert, not knowing they were about to tackle a D-rank mission disguised as F-rank. The man unexpectedly discovered something surprising. When the shrine faced permanent closure due to having no successor, the caretaker's granddaughters panicked instantly. They once disliked Yuryu in every possible way, but now they actively sought him out, even insisting on marrying him. The first to approach him was Asahi, the youngest of the three sisters. She immediately opened her coat upon seeing him, causing Yuryu to cover his eyes in embarrassment. But underneath, Asahi was actually wearing sportswear. She invited him to go running with her. Yuryu didn't refuse. During their run, he learned that Asahi was known as the princess running through the dawn because of her love for running. But what Yuryu never expected was that she could run 30 kilometers without even panting. When the two returned to the shrine, Yuryu noticed the bathroom door was open. He intended to go wash up, but walked in on Asahi changing into a yukata. Acting calm, she claimed she just preferred open spaces. Exhausted, Yuryu slept straight through the night until 5 a.m. But when he opened his eyes, he found Asahi lying next to him. She claimed she wanted to continue the matchmaking process, but in reality, she wanted Yuryu to help her find a spare pair of shoes in the storage room. The two walked into the storage room using a flashlight, but then Asahi joked, wondering whether something indescribable might happen if a man and a beautiful girl were locked in a room together. Unexpectedly, a strong gust of wind blew into the storage room, slamming the old door shut and locking it automatically. Neither of them had their phones, and rescue would take at least 2 hours. While waiting, Yuryu realized Asahi seemed to have severe claustrophobia. Only then did he understand why she left the bathroom door open, and insisted on bringing him along. Sensing Yuryu's stare, Asahi pretended to be tough, insisting she wasn't afraid because she was an adult. Yuryu didn't buy it. He told her to hug his back, so she would feel safer. Then Yuryu used a pair of scissors to pry open the wooden window. By sunrise, his hands were covered in scrapes. Seeing how far Yuryu went for her, Asahi developed real feelings for him. She apologized for her earlier rudeness, but Yuryu patted her head and said he didn't mind. Soon, it was Yuna's turn, the second sister. The moment they met, Yuryu froze. Her overly deliberate outfit made him extremely uncomfortable. While they walked through the garden, a cat suddenly jumped out of the bushes. Although Yuna clearly loved it, she forced herself to push the cat away in order to maintain her persona. Yuryu couldn't help but ask what was going on, but Yuna suddenly tackled him, attempting to force the relationship forward. Yuryu refused immediately. He knew she didn't actually like him. Later, he learned the reason from Asahi. Yuna did it so the shrine would have a successor, and also to prevent Yuryu from going after the other sisters, so she chose to sacrifice herself. Yuryu was speechless. He took Yuna to a cat cafe. Surrounded by cats, Yuna finally dropped her act. After some encouraging words from Yuryu, she finally relaxed. Before they parted, she thanked him and said she had a great time. Finally, it was Yuru's turn, the eldest sister, but she never showed up. When Yuryu went to her room to check, she was already gone, and she didn't even bring her phone. Fortunately, based on a painting in her room, Yuryu guessed she was at the Doi Shrine. He successfully found Yoru, but she seemed like a completely different person. Her former sweet and airhead demeanor was gone. Now she acted mature, and even teased Yuryu from time to time. Confused, Yuryu accompanied her for the entire day. That night, to show her appreciation, Yoru gave him a protective charm. On their way back, Yoru suddenly asked if he had decided which sister he planned to marry. Yuryu didn't answer, but he felt enormous pressure coming from Yoru. As he stepped back, his foot slipped, and he almost fell down the stairs. Yoru reached out to grab the charm strap, but the cheap cord snapped snapped instantly. In that moment, strange memories flooded Yuria's mind. He had graduated and become a doctor, and married all three sisters. The girl accidentally discovered that her fiancé was having an affair, and the other woman was her childhood friend Pamela. But Connie couldn't fight back, because her father was drowning in debt. All she could do was endure in silence. But Pamela wasn't satisfied at all. She had her subordinate pretend she forgot her bag, then handed a hair accessory to Connie for safekeeping. Connie didn't think much of it and agreed. She had no idea she was walking right into a trap. Soon after, Pamela publicly accused Connie of stealing that precious hair accessory from her subordinate. With evidence in hand, and considering Connie's family debt, not a single person spoke up for her. Connie desperately explained that she was only helping to keep it safe, but she was met with even more mockery. Meanwhile, Pamela looked down on her from above. Her eyes were full of jealousy and delight. It turned out Pamela had always despised Connie. Even though Pamela surpassed Connie in every way, everyone had always flocked around Connie since they were young. Today, Pamela wanted not only to destroy Connie's reputation, but also to steal her fiancé. Just when Connie didn't know what to do, she spotted a boy in the crowd. Her eyes lit up immediately, because that boy had seen everything from the beginning. But before Connie could ask for help, the boy turned his head away without hesitation. His actions made it clear he chose to do nothing. Connie collapsed to her knees in despair. Just as she was about to break down, a mysterious voice echoed in her ears.
助けてあげる。この声。でもその代わり。
As the surrounding candles suddenly went out, Connie opened her eyes again as if she had become a different person. She walked straight toward Pamela, and exaggerated the scene she witnessed that day. Pamela instantly panicked. She tried to defend herself by saying it was only a kiss. Her words were immediately cut off by Connie's fiancé, and Pamela realized she had slipped up. But Connie didn't plan on letting her off. She stated that kissing someone else's fiancé was also a form of theft. Pamela didn't respond. Instead, she tried to shift everyone's focus back to the accusation that Connie stole something. But in this state, Connie had already seen through everything. Using her incredible memory, she pointed out every witness present at the scene, and publicly questioned the boy from a moral standpoint. Eventually the boy couldn't stand the pressure and yelled out the truth. More and more people stepped forward after him. Connie's name was completely cleared. Pamela tried to blame everything on her subordinate, but Connie exposed her plan. At that moment, the Viscount hosting the banquet finally arrived. Connie immediately requested to annul the engagement, and threatened that if he refused, she would report tonight's scandal to the king. Then she turned to all the guests, apologized with grace, and offered her blessings.
道ならぬ恋に燃える若き男女にどうか祝福を。それでは皆様、ごめんあそばせ。
By now Pamela knew she had lost completely. She begged Connie for forgiveness, but her actions had already enraged the noble ladies present. In a single night, she went from the schemer to the disgrace of high society. The next morning, Connie woke up thinking it was all just a dream, but then she saw a figure before her. It was a graceful ghost. She called herself Scarlet, the woman who was executed 10 years ago, after being falsely accused of poisoning the crown princess. She offered to help Connie resolve her family's debt, but in exchange, Connie had to avenge her and send every enemy she had straight to hell. The man was an invisible person. He was also a detective. If he wanted to, he could become completely unseen. However, the blood flowing from his body would still reveal itself, and inside the invisible man's heart, there was someone he cared about deeply. She was his human employee, Yoka. Although Yoka was blind, her hearing and sense of smell were far sharper than normal people. One day, the invisible man tried to sit down next to Yoka, but before he could sit, Yoka already sensed his arrival. The invisible man was curious. She clearly couldn't see, so how did she notice? Yoka softly explained that she could smell his unique scent. This surprised the invisible man. It was the first time he realized he had a noticeable smell. To test Yoka's perception, he decided to make himself fully invisible, but to his shock, Yoka still accurately identified his position, using only sound and breath. At that moment, a thought rose in the invisible man's heart. Perhaps Yoka was the only one could ever truly find him. That thought made his heart skip a beat, so after work, he invited her to dinner. Yoka was shy, but she accepted. After learning that Yoka had no food restrictions, the invisible man took her to a Vietnamese restaurant, and ordered a couple's meal set. Since it was her first time there, everything felt like an adventure to her. She enjoyed it immensely, but soon she realized the situation felt suspiciously like a date. Her face instantly turned red from embarrassment. Seeing this, the invisible man gently asked what was wrong. Yoka didn't hide anything. She said it was her first time eating with a man alone, and it felt just like going on a date. What Yoka didn't expect was that the invisible man felt the same way. Seeing how nervous she was, he stood up, moved in front of her, and placed her hand over his chest. Only then did Yoka feel that his heart was racing too. On the way home, Yoka looked calm on the surface, but her emotions were in turmoil. Only after returning to her room did she finally let it all out. Even though she couldn't see the invisible man's face, just from his voice, Yoka could feel that he was calm and elegant. The next day came quickly. When Yoka arrived at work again, she sensed her co-workers were already there. One of them, Mule, was an orc woman responsible for security work. She was decisive and detail-oriented on the job, but a bit rough around the edges outside of work. Yet she treated Yoka like a younger sister. The other employee, Anami, handled intelligence gathering. He was a stubborn human man, looked rude on the outside, but took his work very seriously. That day, Anami and Mule noticed blood on the floor. They thought Yoka was hurt, but the injured one was actually the invisible man. man, Yoka brought a first aid kit to his office. After talking with him, she learned why he was injured. It turned out that while reporting an affair investigation, the client lost control after seeing evidence. The invisible man tried to break up the fight and was accidentally cut. It wasn't a serious injury, but he bled a lot. Worried he might lose too much blood, Yoka insisted on helping. Since she needed to bandage the wound, the invisible man asked her to press on the injury. He didn't want Yoka to worry, but in his heart, he felt a faint warmth. By the time they left the office, Anami and Mule had already gone home. Seeing this, the invisible man brewed 2 cups of freshly bought tea. They sat together, side by side, quietly enjoying the aroma. Meanwhile, Yoka desperately wanted to ask him out on a date, but she feared inviting him herself might make things awkward. Fortunately, the invisible man noticed the look on her face.
では、さらに次の予約を入れてもよろしいでしょうか。
The Demon King wanted his daughter to become a worthy heir, so he called over his most trusted general, Jashi. He wanted her to teach Dodo the cruel nature of demonkind. Jashi accepted the mission. She planned to take Dodo to the demon mines, to teach her how to torture human slaves. After telling her subordinates the training location, Jashi went ahead to the mines alone to prepare. Just then, a demon hunter hiding among the slaves started causing trouble. The demon guards wanted to roast him and eat him, but Jashi refused. She believed every slave was valuable labor. While Jashi was thinking of how to make the hunter submit, Dodo suddenly bounced in carrying a basket of sweet potatoes. She wanted to share them with the slaves, but this act was stopped by the Demon King nearby. Seeing that the Demon King came too, Jashi explained her plan to him, but she warned that Dodo might face danger. The Demon King didn't care at all, because he had just invented a new tool, the magic wand. Anyone with evil intentions who touched her would be turned to ash. The moment he finished speaking, a demon statue next to him became the test subject. Seeing this scene, Jashi became curious. She wondered what would happen if Dodo touched a demon on purpose, but even the Demon King didn't know. Ever since Dodo got the magic wand, Jashi didn't dare to get close to her, because demons themselves were basically walking balls of malice. She was afraid Dodo would touch her and she'd vanish too. Jashi planned to have Dodo interrogate the demon hunter. The final goal was to make Dodo see humans as enemies. Speaking of the demon hunter, he was a tragic person too. His family was killed by stray demons, and when he sought revenge, demon blood splashed on him and cursed him. He became someone who naturally attracted demons. Villagers feared getting dragged into danger, so they chased him out. Eventually, he was captured by the Demon King's army. Soon, Dodo arrived alone at the cell where the hunter was held. Meanwhile, Jashi secretly observed from nearby. She expected the hunter to intimidate Dodo, so Dodo would start hating humans. But instead, Dodo said she came to deliver mushrooms. Because it was almost hot pot season, the hunter was completely confused. He didn't understand why demons would send a kid to him, but he already decided he would never submit. Right then, Dodo casually used the magic wand to open the cell door. The hunter prepared to threaten her and escape, but Dodo suddenly said, "Whenever Dad and Jashi go out for work, I feel really lonely, so I always come out to make friends. Now that you're here, I won't be alone, and you won't be alone either." Her words genuinely touched the hunter, so when he touched Dodo, nothing happened to him. Instead, the magic wand broke his curse and he returned to a normal human. Then Dodo noticed Jashi outside the dungeon. She ran over and hugged Jashi's leg. Jashi panicked and jumped away, but she was shocked to find she didn't turn into ash.
大丈夫でしたよ、ドゥ様。ちゃんとできてましたから。
Later, when questioned by the Demon King, Jashi helplessly reported that the trial was a success. One day, Jashi took Dodo outside to have a snowball fight. A random snowball thrown by Jashi knocked Dodo to the ground. Dodo immediately asked if she had used magic. This question gave Jashi a new idea. She suggested to the Demon King that they teach Dodo offensive magic, because many demons became more evil after learning it. The Demon King agreed. He even took out newly developed dark matter. Eating it would boost the magic power in one's body.
美味しいですか？暗黒物質。
Jashi then brought Dodo to the training grounds. She picked up a rock and used enhancement magic on it. With just one throw, a wall in the distance exploded into a hole. Dodo was amazed. She said she wanted to learn that too.
そのまま投げてください。
Jashi hurried to comfort her. She explained that magic had many types, and everyone had strengths and weaknesses. Hearing that, Dodo calmed down again. She wanted to see more types of magic, so Jashi demonstrated fire magic. But Dodo only created a tiny fireball. This left Jashi unsure what to do, because after learning magic, Dodo didn't become violent at all. Instead, she invented all sorts of new playful tricks, until she saw Jashi put out fire with ice magic. Then Dodo created rectangular ice pillars. Even Jashi wasn't capable of that level. Dodo said she wanted to use this magic on humans. This made Jashi extremely happy. She immediately rushed to the Demon King to show off her results. But when they arrived at the demon mines, they witnessed something unbelievable. Because the mines were very hot, Dodo was using ice magic to cool down the slaves. Seeing this, Jashi got furious. She thought Dodo was wasting magic power, but the Demon King was thrilled to see how much his daughter had grown. Sensing Jashi was cold, Dodo created a tiny fireball just for her. The girl was being teased by a male classmate on the street. She instantly countered with a spinning back kick, but she accidentally kicked Daigo, the popular school heartthrob. While everyone gasped and scolded her, Kojime didn't care at all about who she just kicked. Daigo on the other hand laughed after getting kicked. He hadn't met a girl with that kind of attitude in a long time. After asking around, Daigo learned that Kojime grew up in a single-parent family. Because she grew up without a father, she developed a distant and isolated personality. With her long skirt and quiet nature, she was often mocked for being someone who'd never get a boyfriend. But even when classmates provoked her, Kojime never reacted, because throughout her entire life, she never even had a friend. So when Daigo approached her to say hello, she acted very cold. What she didn't expect was that Daigo would confess to her after school, but Kojime stayed calm. To her, it was just something Daigo did on a whim. They lived in completely different worlds, but Daigo was unusually persistent. He approached her again and asked to exchange phone numbers, but she rejected him again, so he just forced his own number into her hand, telling her she could call anytime. After that, Daigo kept paying attention to Kojime. Seeing that she never contacted him, he confronted her and asked why she didn't call. Kojime simply replied, "Friends are just people who pretend to care, but they leave the moment things go bad." Her words made Daigo fall silent. He thought their relationship would freeze right there, until something unexpected changed everything. One night after her part-time job, Kojime noticed a creepy older man following her. He was a regular at the bakery where she worked, and he always watched her from a distance. That terrified Kojime. She hid inside a convenience store, calling her mom over and over, but no one picked up. Then she remembered Daigo's number. At that time, Daigo was hanging out with friends at karaoke. His phone suddenly rang. When he heard she was in danger, he rushed to the convenience store immediately. After seeing Kojime and hearing what happened, he stayed surprisingly calm. He walked to the counter, bought an ice cream, then wrapped his arm around her shoulder, and walked out of the store with her. The stalker immediately stepped forward and asked who Daigo was. Before Kojime could say anything, Daigo proved their relationship through his actions. The stalker backed off and disappeared, but Kojime stood frozen with a red face. That's when Daigo realized it might have been her first kiss. He quickly apologized, explaining he only did it to scare the stalker away. Kojime didn't want to talk about it. She just thanked Daigo quietly. Daigo then walked her home to make sure she was safe. After that incident, Kojime no longer shut Daigo out. The next day, Daigo's friend Mami heard about it. She approached Kojime and asked to be friends. Kojime didn't refuse, but after talking with Mami, Kojime learned that Daigo had kissed not just her, but also Mami and many other girls in class. Only then did she realize she wasn't anything special to Daigo. The man just wanted to play a game on hell difficulty, but the moment he clicked confirm, he was suddenly transported into the game world. And just as expected, Alan was born into the lowest class of family of serfs. To make things worse, his leveling difficulty was 100 times higher than normal players, but the advantage was that his level had no cap at all. Since he kept his memories after transmigrating, Alan learned the local language at just 1 year old. To avoid making his parents suspicious, he checked his skill panel very carefully each time. His class was Summoner. His starting skills were only Summon and Create, and he could only summon the weakest bug-type beasts. Only by raising his summoning level could he unlock stronger summons. Following the instructions on his panel, Alan first created a summoning card, then used it, and a giant grasshopper jumped out. Sadly, the grasshopper couldn't understand a word he said. After naming it Denka, Alan discovered that Denka came with a blessing skill, meaning its stats could stack onto his own. That made Alan so excited he accidentally made noise. In the following days, Alan tried summoning again. This time he got a low intelligence mouse, but different pets offered different stat buffs. Alan could even command them to use specific skills. Even though he now had some combat ability, this world was filled with dangerous monsters, and 2 weak summons were far from enough to survive. At that moment, his pet slots could only store 10 cards, but every stat bonus from those cards would stack on him, meaning even at 1 year old, Alan could easily split firewood. Time flew, and half a year went by. Alan's summon and create skills reached level 2. Now he could generate stronger summons directly, and even fuse them. More importantly, Alan discovered that his card capacity doubled, which meant his stat bonuses would increase dramatically. He wanted to test his new skill right away, but he worried hunger would drain his mana, so he made sure to eat well at night. Once he was in perfect condition, Alan activated fusion, but nothing appeared in front of him. Turns out at his current summon level, even full mana was nowhere near enough. Not until Alan turned 3 did his summon and create reach a higher level. Now he only needed to fuse 2 different beasts to unlock a new species. The bird in front of him, named Kyubi, had the ability to mimic sounds, which could be useful for confusing enemies. Alan then summoned everything he could. The frog could jump and act as a decoy in battle. The mole was even more useful, capable of instantly digging huge trap holes. But the biggest problem remained. All of his summons had extremely low intelligence. Just then, a girl's voice came from outside. It was his childhood friend, Karina. She came every day to practice sword fighting with him. Even though they were just kids, Alan never dared to underestimate her, because Karina's speed and strength were far beyond normal children. Even with Alan's stats maxed, he still got defeated within seconds. During that time, his mother became pregnant again. Alan wanted to help with chores, but when he offered to take over for farm work. His parents gently refused. After all, he was only 3. Once he grew up, he'd have to work the fields whether he liked it or not, because this world had strict class divisions. Once you became a serf, it was almost impossible to escape that status, but there was one chance to change his fate: the job appraisal at age 5. The creator god would perform the appraisal. If someone received a special class, even a serf could rise to the top. Seasons passed and winter arrived. One day, his mother went into labor. Alan was extremely worried, but all he could do was small tasks within his power. Thankfully, Karina's family came to help after hearing the news. After a long night of childbirth and prayers, at the moment the sun rose, his mother safely gave birth to a baby boy, Alan's new little brother.